All right, guys, this morning I just want to take a few minutes to share what's on my heart and mind, and I'm hoping that this will, in turn, really speak to the right person. I want to talk about past mistakes and the regret that we have as we try to deal with pondering what we should have done versus what we aspired to do or to be. And this is a tough one because nobody is immune to mistakes. It's part of the human condition. It's just there's no getting around it. If you have any blood going through your veins, you're going to be someone who makes mistakes, and chances are, not just chances, guarantees are that you're going to make a lot of them. And the younger you are when you're hearing this, the more important it is. In some ways, it might be just as important if you're older, depending on how well you've dealt with these things. Because I know that looking back over the course of my life, I'm 52 now, but so I've got quite a bit to look back on at this point. Hopefully, I'll have a lot more to look back on as the years go by, but not in terms of mistake. I just hope I have the years there. But as I look back over the years and I've seen the mistakes I've made, I do have a lot of regret, and I've learned to deal with it in ways that I think are somewhat healthy. And I kind of want to pass it on to you here because for a while I didn't. For a while I really didn't, and there are reasons for that, and some of you might relate to them. See, when I was a kid, just because of my personality type, when things didn't go right in the family dynamic, like if, for instance, my dad had some health problems, and I remember seeing him go down physically different times in his life. And when that happens in the life of a child, the younger he is, the more prone he is to place the blame on himself. And this is exactly what I did, and it kind of helped to shape and form some of my personality. And it's something that just never really quite left me. But that's one contributing factor to all of this. Is just my basic personality is that I tend to have regrets because I oftentimes place blame on myself mistakenly. But there are true regrets I have that are based in mistakes I've actually made. And these are the things I want to speak to because if you don't deal with them correctly, they can paralyze you if you spend time looking back on them, especially if you're in a position where somebody else is bringing them to your remembrance time and again to manipulate you or to get something out of you. Perhaps it's something they truly need, like an apology or some kind of an amendment. But in a lot of cases, there are people who will just take advantage of others that they know can feel bad about something. So they're going to bring up your past mistakes, and that's something I want to speak to here also. But a lot of times, you're just going to spend a lot of time beating yourself up. As you look back over things that are absolutely consequential, you're going to really just have a level of angst about it that you have a hard time coping with, and really could have a detrimental effect on your health. It's just not good for you, and you've got to learn to deal with this because this is a part of life, and this is something that is akin to everybody. Now, I'm not talking about having buyer's remorse where you feel like you've made a mistake in buying a car or buying too many groceries at the store, because all those are easily fixable and they're short term, right? But I'm talking about making mistakes such as the way you've treated other people. Perhaps it's a parent or it's a love interest, your children, and perhaps it's something you've done. It's a kind of a mistake that's helped cultivate problems in the workplace. And I've done all of those things. I've made all of those mistakes in some way or another. And some of them are so bad that I don't even want to repeat them. I have regrets looking back on my home life growing up. as a child and the way I treated my parents and some of the ways I handled things. But a lot of that can be chalked up to immaturity. And it also helps knowing that my parents also don't hold those things against me. But at the same time, there have been points in my life when I've had a lot of difficulty in dealing with those. Another place I've had a lot of turbulence in pondering what I could have done better is in just relationships. Whether it's been relationships with my wife or my children, or even in past relationships. I don't really have too many regrets now because those are so far behind me. And time does help. Time, as there is a greater expanse of time between you and the past, that does help, and that will be something that will help you get over some of those things, but it doesn't in all cases, especially if you never learn from them. But if you're somebody who's going through something right now, or you are someone who just spends a lot of time in introspection, introspection is a good thing. It can really help you. And I'm someone who's very familiar with that. I actually extol the individual who can introspect, because these are the people who sometimes they're honest with themselves, sometimes they're not. It's not a catch-all. You can introspect and be completely dishonest with yourself, or you can face things head on and then try to fix them. That's the whole point of introspection, is that you're reflecting and you're trying to put a salve or an ointment on it, and you're trying to, correct these problems within yourself and help allay or actually avoid future mistakes again. But there are people who just cannot even be honest with themselves while they're reflecting on who they are and what they've done. So it's really something you have to keep in check, because the reason why I say this is because as I've looked back over the years, I actually just cringe. Still to this day, I just cringe. And I can't believe I've done some of the things I've done, said some of the things I've said. But here's the thing. Here's what you have to remember. Everybody deals with this. Everybody has this problem. You're not the only one. And what happens is when we're looking back and we're feeling bad about things, sometimes we feel like, well, we have reason to feel this way because everybody else remembers what we did. I'm gonna just make this as clear as I possibly can. Nobody's thinking about you and your mistakes in the past as much as you think they are. And the people that are, and that are holding your feet to the fire for it, probably don't have the best of intentions. But I would say most people are having the same issue. So they're not really so focused on you. And chances are when they look at you, they probably see growth that they don't see in themselves, which is another reason why they're having a difficult time with it. But understand something. You cannot unring a bell. Whether somebody else comes to you and wants to bring up the past, or you're just doing it to yourself, you need to remind yourself. You might need to remind somebody else. There's nothing I can do about the past. There's nothing I can do to change it. Yes, I made those mistakes. Now, if somebody says to you, but you hurt me, you can say, you know what? I probably hurt a lot of people, and I'm very sorry for that. And I wish I could change that, but I can't. But I do want you to know I am very sorry. I'm very sorry for a lot of things, and I probably hurt a lot of people. But you've got to draw a line in the sand where you no longer allow other people to do this to you, where you no longer allow other people to hurt you. And sometimes you can't stop them from saying the things they're going to say or feeling the things they're going to feel. But you've got to remember, I can't undo something that's already been done. And besides that, even if nobody else is a factor in all of this, you've got to tell yourself this from time to time. The only time this really becomes a problem that you need to be concerned about is if you never learn from your problems, if you never learn from your mistakes. Because what happens is if you're spiraling out of control because you continue to make mistakes over and over again, you're gonna know deep down inside yourself that you can't trust yourself. And if you can't trust yourself, you know nobody else can. But here's what I want you to realize today is that nobody else is as focused on you as they are in themselves. You've got to get past that hump. But if you're still, if you haven't matured much and you haven't changed a lot, and you're still making a lot of mistakes, and a lot of mistakes are made. And listen, a lot of these regrets hit you very quickly soon after you've said or done something you shouldn't. It's because you've misinterpreted something and you're aware of it. Well, if you have, own up to it. Or you've misjudged somebody or something, own up to it. But I think a lot of times what happens is these things take place because we jump to conclusions while opening our mouth at the same time. Learn to be a little more humble. Learn to speak less. Delay your remarks and your judgments. And that's hard when you're younger. That is very difficult when you're younger because you feel a sense of pride. You're coming into yourself, right? And you feel like you need to express yourself. And society really does cultivate this and encourage it. And it's not necessarily healthy because they're not concerned about telling you what your boundaries ought to be. And that's got to be something that you do. But I'm going to tell you here right now, you need to delay your remarks and your judgments until you had time to think about things. Learn to be a little more humble. And pride is one of the biggest factors in this. But as far as looking back and having these regrets that stymie you and paralyze you, you've got to stop that. You can't unring a bell. Just move forward, learn from your mistakes, assess your life now. Ask yourself, where am I making mistakes? What am I doing wrong? And always try to be learning from what you're doing wrong. And guys, let me tell you something. This is always going to be something you have to deal with. You're never gonna get to a point where you're not making mistakes. No matter how many books you read on marriage, no matter how many books you raise on child rearing, no matter how many books you read on or videos you watch on surviving in the workplace, in the lion's den, no matter how much you absorb, you're going to continue to make mistakes, but hopefully they'll be less consequential. Hopefully they won't shine as bright because you're a little more humble, you're taking time to think, you're reserving judgment, and you're containing yourself in your words. But don't spend time in the past. Don't spend time in the past. And when somebody comes to you and says, you're just somebody who makes a lot of mistakes. Remember when you did this? Remember when you did that? Draw a boundary right there. You tell them, I can't undo that. And if I hurt you, I'm sorry. I probably hurt a lot of people. But I can't go back in the past and change that now. You need to take back control because this is what happens when you're in this place is you do not feel like you have control. And it feels very apparent to everyone else. And it's probably not as much as you think it is, but you needed to hear this today. But you did need to hear this today, right? If this has helped, if it's mattered to you at all, leave a comment down below. Tell me your thoughts, give me your opinions, or share your experiences. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't done so already, and share this with somebody else who may need to hear it. Because chances are you're going to have a hard time. You're going to have a hard time finding anybody who doesn't deal with this on a difficult level in some way or another. Guys, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for letting me express myself here right now. Don't let the mistakes of the past, the misinterpretations and the misjudgments keep you there. Move on, learn. And I hope that each and every single one of you have a great day. Be wise.